I'm trying to work out how to finish it off because unfortunately we didn't actually get the pattern to take home with us. As you can probably tell from my voice, I have been a little under the weather. I'm still not fully recovered, but I realised with my 12 books of Bookmas, I'm already falling behind, so I'm going to try and play a bit of catch up. I'm feeling better than I was yesterday, but like I said, I'm not fully recovered. Just sat here with my cozies, trying to do a bit of crochet. Last week I went to a crochet workshop at Hobbycraft and they were teaching us how to make baubles. It took longer than expected. The workshop actually overran and I only managed to get half. That's my half. But at the moment I'm just re-practicing the stitches along here. I realized I haven't actually done my November's wrap up, and considering the last wrap up video I did was covering 4 months, I'm definitely not falling back on that. So I thought today I will share with you the books I read in November. Our book club book for November was The Delegate Dream Department Store. The premise of this book was so different to anything I've heard of before. It really intrigued me. There's a department store in which you go to purchase your dreams. So you can have dreams of certain childhood memories, of meeting your crush, of meeting a celebrity, of flying. You just go to the store. There are other stores as well, but this store in particular you go to purchase your dreams. I even love the tagline, "The dream you ordered is sold out." In this book, we join Penny, who is new to working at the dream store. We just follow her and learn about how the dream store itself works, what happens when a certain dream is not available, what happens when a customer isn't happy with their dream. I really enjoyed this book. I will say the writing I found very basic, but I still enjoyed the whole concept of the book. I loved that emotions and feelings were the currency in this world, and I think my favorite currency had to be cozy. I felt there wasn't a lot of character development, but it's a short story, and as a palette cleanser I think it's great. What I did really appreciate in the book was there were affirmations in the book, and there were just lessons in there of how dealing with like deep-rooted trauma that's kind of within your subconscious, which sounds really deep considering I said it's basic level, but that's what I liked about it. It didn't get too deep into it, but it's another insight into how the mind works. I liked this book. I gave it a 3.25 stars. Would I give it 3.5? Possibly a 3.5 actually, thinking about it. I loved the whimsy of the world itself. Yeah, I'll say a 3.5. The next book I don't actually have with me, but I read Tastes Like Sugar by Nisha Sharma. This is book 2 in her If Shakespeare Was an Auntie trilogy, and it was just so much fun, as was book 1. So book 1 was Dating Dr. Dill. I read it earlier in the year, and I've just got around to reading this one. The books you do need to read in order. You could read this as a standalone, but there are like huge spoilers from book 1 if you haven't read that and you're planning to read that one after. So if you're reading them, read them in order. In Tastes Like Sugar, we have Bobby, who is an event organizer, and she is planning her best friend's wedding, and one of the best men of the wedding happens to be, I've forgotten his name, Benjamin, also known as Bunty, and he is a chef. They both have their individual stories. They are also enemies / rivals, so you've got that. It is a reimagining of, I don't know whether I should say, normally I don't like saying it, but this actually says it on the book. So yeah, I'll just say it's a reimagining of Much Ado About Nothing, which again, I absolutely love. This was just a funny, messy take on it, and I had such a good time reading it. I think one of the things that I've enjoyed about these books is that it also touches on the subjects and highlights issues that tend to happen within families. I don't know if it's, I don't want to say stereotypical Asian families or South Asian families, but I do think that is how it has been for many years. Obviously, it's not every family, but it's refreshing to read about it, especially when you live in a society where you are hoping to change the narrative. I think this book definitely addresses that in a fun way. I would say with their relationship, initially, I didn't feel the chemistry between them. I know I said it's enemies to lovers, but I just didn't feel a progression towards it. It felt like it was rushed. They were enemies, and then it very quickly switched up to them having other feelings, if that makes sense. I enjoyed the aunties being back. They definitely bring a different angle and humor to the book. And for me, the book, it was fun along the way, but it was the ending that really brought it up for me. Again, just like the first book, it was it was like watching a movie, and the grand finale at the end was, yeah, it was really fun. I gave it 3.25 stars, and I'm definitely looking forward to picking up the last book in the trilogy, which is Marriage and Musty. The rest of the books that I read in November were Christmas books, just so I could get in the spirit. First one I started off with was a mystery thriller. It's The Christmas Guest. It's a short book in which we meet Alice, who is an American art student studying and living in London. Over Christmas, she is invited by one of her fellow students to her family mansion, or in fact just family home, but it's a huge one in the Cotswolds. Alice, who doesn't have anyone to fly back to and has always wanted to experience a British Christmas, decides to accept and go along to the Cotswolds. And when she arrives there, things start to seem a bit odd, and these little secrets start to unravel around the family home and the area that they're in. This book definitely had me gripped, and it was well paced. I will say that the who and the why especially didn't surprise me as much. The journey was fun. There were parts that I felt were starting to unravel. That's probably just my mind overworking. I did enjoy reading it, but the overall ending of the book was a bit of a letdown for me. But for a short read, a palate cleanser, a mystery, and for the festive vibes, we had Christmas games, we had pub lunches. I would recommend it in that sense. I gave it 2.75 stars, which sounds like a really low rating. I don't think it's a bad rating. It just didn't deliver in every aspect I would have liked it to. The Christmas Holiday, written by Philippa Ashley, I was very underwhelmed. I'm surprised because she is a Sunday Times bestseller, and I believe she's got quite a few Christmas books out. This just wasn't the one for me. We have Crystal, who hasn't had the happiest or easiest of childhoods. However, her aunt has always tried to do the best that she could for her. Following her passing, she leaves Crystal with some money, and she tells her that she must spend it on something for herself that brings her joy, and not to be selfless with it, and basically spend it on what she would enjoy. Crystal has always longed for the perfect Christmas, and so she books a stay at this small little cabin. Is it a cabin? Near the lakes, just to have the perfect Christmas getaway. Things unfortunately don't quite go to plan. She meets Max, who despises Christmas, and on the other hand, Crystal has a Christmas decorating business, so she is on a mission to change Max's mind about Christmas altogether. So we've got Grumpy Sunshine trope in there. I just found it very difficult to get into, and once, I think it was probably halfway through where I was a little bit more invested, but it plateaued there, and then it kind of was just a downward slope. There was a time where I thought I was going to DNF it. Again, probably just me. So I gave it 2.5 stars. And I just want to say, I don't think there was anything wrong with the story itself. I just felt it wasn't for me. I also read the Christmas postcards by Karen Swan. Natasha and Rob go on this mini winter getaway, a break in the hope to rekindle the romance in their marriage. It's the two of them and their young daughter. However, when leaving, their daughter leaves behind her much beloved cuddly toy. As you can see, I still haven't fully recovered, but I am doing much better, and I just want to say thank you so much for your well wishes as well. It means so much to me. Thank you. I can't remember exactly where I was up to, but I'm going to carry on from where I think I've left off. Natasha has just got back from a winter getaway with her husband and her young daughter, in which they were hoping to rekindle some romance within their marriage. Unfortunately, it turns out that her daughter has left behind her cuddly toy Moolah, I believe what's its name, and just seems to be very inconsolable without the toy. It's not feasible for them to go back to get the toy for her daughter, and so with the advice of a friend, she enlists the help of social media to help locate Moolah. And it just so happens that Moolah is picked up by Duffy, who stays in the same getaway Airbnb, I believe it was, that Natasha did with her family. Duffy picks up Moolah and decides to keep it because it reminds him of the stuffed toy that his little sister used to have when they were younger. So he decides to pick Moolah up and take it with him on his travels to Nepal. The news of Moolah being missing goes viral, and people are trying to help reunite Moolah with the little girl. And by the time Duffy learns about it, it's just a bit too late for him to return it back straight away. So instead, he agrees with Natasha to send regular updates of Moolah on his adventures with her, or no, I guess her adventures with him. And that's just a very brief summary of the book. It is a dual timeline book, and despite it being quite a slow burner for me, I really did enjoy it. The characters were endearing, are very likable. The plot did progress in a good way, even though I did say it's quite slow for me. And this was one of the books that, again, picked up for me a lot more near the ending, like the action, and there was some humor in it as well. It's very enjoyable to read. It didn't give me Christmas vibes as such. It is a nice winter romance to cozy up with. Oh, and I gave it 3.5 stars. And then another Christmas romance from a new author to me was Snowed In for Christmas by Sarah Morgan, and I loved this book. Is it the next bestseller that was going to be flying off the shelves? Probably not, but it's the kind of book that I don't know if I was in the mood for it or not, but it was the book that I needed to read at the time. It's uplifting, it's heartwarming, it's funny, it's cozy. It's everything you could want from a Christmas book, I think. Well, from a Christmas rom-com anyway. We've got the Miller family who have a huge gathering every Christmas at their massive mansion type home. And the Miller siblings, Ross, Alice and Clemmy, are often trying to deflect prying questions and certain pressures from their family. So it just happens this Christmas that they end up lying about the brother of Ross having a girlfriend, Lucy. Ross doesn't realise that Lucy isn't actually fictional and she exists. She works at a London-based marketing agency, which is more like a family to her rather than a company or organisation. But unfortunately, they seem to be sinking, and she wants to try and acquire Ross's company as a business partner to help her own company. So she somehow ends up finding herself at the Miller home with a business proposal just to drop it off because she seems to be in the area. But as you can probably guess, the Miller family confuse Lucy for being Ross's actual girlfriend and invite her in. And by the time the confusion is all cleared up, it's too late for her to leave because she's snowed in for Christmas. There are lots of characters in this book, but not to the extent where you can't keep up, and they have their own little stories and backgrounds, which I really appreciated. Do check the content warnings, some of them may be a bit triggering. This book had some funny banter, it had some sweet relationships. Ross's relationship with his nan, oh my gosh, it was just one of my favourite relationships I've read so far, and it was just a hug. I gave it 4 stars, and I think it's one that I could keep going back to every Christmas. I also read Midnight in Everwood, which I have mentioned is a retelling of another Christmas classic. Marietta loves ballet. Her biggest dream is just to continue dancing and to perform. Family, however, are eager to get her married because they feel she's come of age now. Enter their new, majestic, enchanting neighbour, Mr. Dosselmeyer. And with his charm, he manages to convince her parents for him to have her hand in marriage. However, Marietta, who doesn't want to get married because she feels it will take her away from her love of ballet, refuses the proposal, and within his rage and his ego not being able to take the rejection, he casts a certain type of spell or curse in which Marietta finds herself at the stroke of midnight on Christmas Eve, lost in an enchanted forest or Everwood. Everwood begins so beautiful and serene, picture perfect with snow on the woods and the forest. As the journey continues within Everwood, she finds herself captured by a sadistic king. So the story progresses on Marietta trying to escape from this king and make her way back home. This book is written by M.A. Kuzniar. I'm not sure what the M.A. stands for, I'm afraid. But oh, here we go. Maria Kuzniar. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I really like her writing style in this book. It's so descriptive in a very poetic, elegant way, and not tedious at all. However, the book itself, I found, did at times become tedious for me in the way the plot, it kept dipping throughout. It started off really well paced. I did feel the character building could have been a bit more, but her description of both Nottingham, of where Marietta's from, and Everwood was just, especially Everwood, some of the places, like the village as such, I don't think it's called a village, I can't remember what it's called in the book, sweet shops. I just had pictures of Christmas markets, and it was lovely in that sense. I just felt the story itself fell a little short for me. I did enjoy the female representation and their relationships, and I gave it a 3.5 stars. Overall, a really sweet retelling. And finally, I indulged in a few young reader books. By young reader, I mean junior fiction or middle grade books. I really love these kind of books. They lift you up, feel good books. So I read The Christmas Carols, which is part of a series. I believe there are 3 books in the series. I've only read the first one so far, but I enjoyed it, and if I get round to it, I will read more of them. Carols are the type of family where it's Christmas every day for them throughout the year. And over the summer, her parents buy a new house, meaning they both need to go back to work in order to help cover the costs of this new home. But it also means that there is no one left to homeschool Holly, who is 9 years old. And so in September, she starts school for the first time ever. As you can imagine, she goes to school in September, and as she gets to meet new people, make new relationships, she quickly comes to realize that not everyone is like her and her family, and not everyone appreciates Christmas every single day of the year, let alone some people don't even celebrate Christmas. So we join her navigate this new phase in her life where she's meeting new people, she's learning new things about herself, as well as the world around her. It's just a really sweet, it's funny, it touches on a few serious issues but in a light-hearted way, and it's an overall feel-good book. We're down to my last book, and I'm going to try and make it quick because as you can see, the sun is moving over. My last book in November was a mini-series. The first book was a reread for me, and I don't think the series itself has a name, so I'm just going to call it the Christmas series by Matt Haig. The reread was A Boy Called Christmas. I read it for the first time last year and I was blown away by the book, and again, it did not disappoint at all. I don't want to give too much away about these books because I think part of the magic within the book is just not knowing. Even though you think you may be able to guess by the name, there was just so much to the book that I was surprised about. It's enchanting, it's heartwarming, there's adventure, there's kidnapping, there's obviously magic. It's just, there's tragedy, there's humor, there's so much to this book, to the series. I'll go through the names of each of the books in a moment. There's just so much to these books that brings just pure joy that I really highly recommend them. I know that they're children's books, they're for younger readers, but it's so nourishing for the soul to read books like this that I think it should be read by all. So to quickly go through the books, book 1, as I said, is A Boy Called Christmas, which briefly is about a boy called Nicholas who comes to be known as Christmas. We have book 2, which is a mouse called Mika. Mika, we are introduced to in book number 1. And this is a very, very short book, probably like a novella in the world of children's books, but it's really short. And then we have The Girl Who Saved Christmas, which is, I guess, book number 2. So A Mouse Called Mika is more book 1.5. And then we've got The Girl Who Saved Christmas, which is book number 2. And this book is about Amelia, who we briefly hear from at the end of book 1. It begins on the streets of London. We have a special guest cameo within the book, is what I will say. Again, it's a very heartwarming book. Don't want to give away too much. This book at times reminded me of Oliver Twist. And then we have book number 3, which is Father Christmas and Me. And this book, again, I'm not going to go into it, but it's a very enjoyable read. There's 2 other mini books, not even novella. I think these were they like the book day books that they make? So book 3.5 is The Truth Pixie, and 3.6 is The Truth Pixie Goes to School. Those 2 books were ultra short. They're rhyming books. Those you could skip if you wanted to, but the whole series you could do in one sitting. They're short books, but so invested in them that you just can't put them down. So those are all the books that I read in November. I will be continuing with the festive reads and the winter reads throughout December. So if you want to hear about them, then be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching and have a lovely day. Goodbye.